Hi everyone, I'm Trev from Coiltek, and today I'm going to have a bit of a chat with Guy, the Gold Rush guy. So hi Guy, how are you?
G'day Trevor, how are you going?
Good mate, good. Thanks for joining me on on this little show that we're going to put together. So out of all three of the coils for the new NOX series, what's your favourite and why would that be?
It's the 15-inch. I mean, like I just like the bigger coils because I tend to do a lot of area. So I'm a big area hunter.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also great to have sort of a smaller coil because I know there's some areas, and I've got a few other areas sitting at the back of my mind.
Mm.
Given that we're sort of just coming out of summer and we've had some pretty horrific weather, more wet than sort of hot at the moment, but there's some areas that I definitely want to chuck that 10x5 on
Yeah.
and really have a good go at, because I've been over some of these areas with some of the bigger coils, and these are old, and there's one especially where it's been, everyone's flogged it and all that kind of stuff. And last time I was managed to sort of picked out a couple of Commonwealth halfpennies, which come
Yeah.
in at about 18, which is dead center on a gold sovereign. So
Yeah.
a lot of these sites go back to the 1850s. So, and parts of them were almost undetectable. So keen to get back there with a smaller coil and hopefully pick up a nice little gold sovereign or something like that.
With the Equinox, it's already got three coils, 6-inch, 11-inch, and 15x12 OEM from Minelab, which are great coils.
Yep.
So why should anyone buy a different coil? Like, why would you go and buy another coil type? And with these new NOX series, it makes 6 coils out there now, so gives plenty more options. But why would you buy another coil?
Oh, there's fun. I mean, there's fundamental differences, Trevor. So, I mean, the 6-inch is a round coil. It's totally different to a 10x5. I mean, a 10x5 in terms of the lateral area that it travels almost twice as big, but it gives you the target separation. So that's an example there. The 14x9 gives you that. It's bigger than the 11-inch, but again gives you that really good target separation, having a lateral of about 9 inches. And as discussed, the 15-inch, I like it because it seems to be a lot more comfortable, and I'm confident I can get close to the ground, because it really does sort of have that strength. And probably yourself that I'm pretty hard on my detectors, and there's a reason why detectors have skid plates too. So I tend to give my detectors a fair workout, and the coils as well. So there's not too many skid plates that survive any more than sort of 6 months of my workings, especially even at the goldfields, because a lot of the ground's been pulled up, and it's quite rocky in that too.
Quite rocky and sharp, especially with the small quartz pieces and that as well. Then with the 15-inch coil, Guy, have you had any good depth targets as yet?
Yeah, most definitely. So, and not only that, these depth targets in urban settings, so with a lot of sort of interference or EMI, and also out in the goldfields. So again, I have dug targets quite confidently at 8 to 10 inches, and the targets sort of stopped me really quickly. So
has there been any targets that you've dug where maybe you've taken the 15x12 that may give people out there a little bit more confidence that 15-inch round is doing a little bit better work in the depth?
Yeah, so I did a little bit of a comparison, I suppose a little bit earlier on with the coils, and look, as I said, I have a lot of faith in the round 15-inch having at least the performance of the 15x12. So, and basically giving you the confidence that it will go deep, and you will actually. The important part is that you don't lose the characteristics and the strength of the Equinox, which is it really smashes targets. The targets really come straight back out at you. So that's a really important, and to me is a really important part, that the coils don't change the machine and the performance of the machine.
So the 14x9 NOX coil is a great addition between the 11 and the 15x12 of Minelab, but it may have some similar characteristics to the 11-inch. You've used the 11-inch fairly extensively. What's your opinion between the 14x9 and the 11-inch standard? What maybe differences you've found, and what performance characteristics between the two?
Yeah, I think there's obviously a couple of quite clear ones. Obviously, there's a different shape. So looking at the the elliptical coil compared to a circular coil. The other part is that there is a weight difference between them. I've also found that the 14x9 is probably a bit better in the pinpointing, again because of the lateral. Because when we do go over targets, we usually go over them both. If you're like west east, and then you go back over them sort of north south. Not only to help pinpointing, but also just to confirm that target. So because when you start getting things doing one thing one way and the other thing the other, especially if they're sort of shallower targets, then it's probably likely that they might not be circular, which is what I suppose that's one of the key parts of the Equinox, is that it's very, very good at understanding what a solid or circular target is, and its audio and numerical response also will waver if there's anything that's off shape, which but still you still have to dig it, because obviously you'd like to pick up something like a cricket buckle or something like that.
Rings
that may
could be
not
squashed.
Yes, rings can be squashed and all that kind of stuff. So so it's it's quite an interesting interesting sort of comparison, because when you look at the area of the coils, they've probably got a similar sort of area, but they're quite different in the way that I think you'd use them. But in terms of sort of the depth and the what I'd call the response, they're fairly equivalent in that, but there's different characteristics that set them aside. So
and it was a good point you made about the area of the coils. They are very similar. If you squash the 14x9 down, then it sort of almost is like an 11, I would say, 2 inches this way, maybe 11 and a half, something like that. So they'd be very similar if you squash them down. But what we try and make people understand as well is that when you have a round coil and you squash it and it goes long, as you squash the coil's windings together and they become narrower, you actually lose depth, and magnetic field strength changes. So even though they may have the same area, they're not going to have the same depth characteristics and pinpointing and sensitivity characteristics, because as you squash a coil, the magnetic field gets squashed as well and becomes a little bit more sensitive in that sense. So would you say that that's proven out in the field between your ellipticals and rounds of the similar size?
Yeah, it's I suppose it's been a bit difficult to say that categorically, because I mean, especially when you look at the 6-inch and a 10x5 are different coils, because one's basically almost twice as big as the other, even though they're both very, very small coils, very, very sensitive sort of coils. Probably the closest comparison would be the 14x9 and the 11. I haven't noticed anything in terms of especially the depth. So I'm still getting some really good depth with the 14x9.
And it's probably a little bit more likened to the 15-inch comparison there, because you've got 15 inches by 12 inches and you've got a 15-inch round. So as you squash a 15 to go to 12 inches, that's where you're going to lose that broadness of magnetic field, and the depth can change. So you're right there. That one's probably a little bit more comparative in that sense, where it just proves that round coil has better depth capabilities over elliptical of the same length.